Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
A show of hands just to say hello. I'd love to see you saying hello.
Hi.
So lovely to see you all. We're just waiting for more people to come through. Thank you. And if you could mute your microphones as you're coming in, that would really be helpful. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. I was hoping we could get introductions by person, but looking at the numbers, to be nice if you could just leave a little note in the chat function and just tell us where you are at the moment. If you're in the UK, what city you're in. If you're from outside the UK, where you are joining us from. So that would be nice. Just leave a little note and then we'll get into the proceedings in a minute. What would also be nice to have is if you've already got a theater company, for example, let us know in the chat as well. Or if you could use the yes function in the chat facility, just use the green yes function to say you already have a theater company. I'd like to just get a sense of who's in the audience today, please. So my name is Chiwe Chihana. Welcome today to this amazing workshop with my director, Mojisola Elufowoju, who will be taking you through a journey of her career in this and how she got to establish Utopia Theatre, which you're all a part of. So welcome and let's enjoy this together. Let's observe respect for each other, but let's interact. Would really love to interact with you. So when the moment comes, we'll be asking you to ask your questions, interact with us, and just be part of the process. Let's get this going together. So I'd love to introduce to you the amazing Mojisola Elufowoju, who is going to be telling us about how she set up a theatre company. Moji, good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Chiwe.
Hello, lovely to have you, although I see you a lot, but yeah, lovely to have you here and hear your story, which I haven't heard before.
It's good to see you too. And welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to try and keep it real because I think when we keep it real is when we get the best out of situations. I'm not going to bombard you with jargons about what you need to learn. All I'm going to do is try to use how I've started in this industry to guide you. And some of you probably already have a theatre company, some of you may not. But I think the first question is, why start a theatre company? So when I left drama school, I started looking around in terms of opportunities to get into the industry. As you all know, all over the world, wherever you are, this industry is a very competitive industry. It's one where you have to really work really, really hard for you to hone your craft and for you to just allow those doors to open. So I decided that I wasn't really wanting to wait around for those doors to open. I'm sure you're all very ambitious people too. And when I started my career, I was in that kind of ambitious mood of, well, if I try opening these doors and they are not going to open, then I'm going to make my own door and open my own door for myself. So what I did was I got in touch with a few people that we were in drama school together, and I said to them, well, what are you doing? And some of them were not working at the time. We'd only just graduated. And I said, would you like to be part of a production that I have? And I had taken a student loan for that course, and I had a little bit of change left over from that student loan. And I decided to invest that money in that production. So that is how I started. I think for you as well, if you're just thinking about starting a theatre company, I think you have to think about what is your goal. To be honest with you, at the time, I wasn't even thinking about that kind of end goal. I was just thinking, I love this industry. I'm passionate about this, and I want to do this. And I was kind of thinking about artists generally, for example, painters. And I was thinking, well, a painter is not sitting around somewhere and saying, oh, I'm going to put an application to this person to commission me to paint. They just go ahead and they just paint. A sculpture doesn't go around saying, oh God, where's that building going to open their door so I can come and make this work in their building? No, they just go out there, they go and find scrap, they make what they need to make. And they use what they make as a way of showcasing what they can do. Because at the end of the day, unless people know what you can do, how can they even begin to offer you opportunities to come and do something? Right. So that was my goal. At the end of the day, when I then got into it, my goal was actually, I need to just make work. I love doing this stuff. I need to just do it. You go to drama school and they teach you all of these various ways. I don't know how many people out of you are trained. They teach you all of these various methods of doing things. But the reality is you can be taught how to direct a play. But until you get into that situation and really direct a play, because directing a play is not just about, I'm intelligent, I can read a play, I understand this, I understand that, I know Stanislavski, I know this, I know that. It's also about managing people. It's about managing people, it's about managing money, it's about, you find yourself in situations sometimes that you think, oh my God, why am I doing this? You then find yourself in some situations where you're like, oh my God, it's like I'm born to do this. This is what I want to do. Or I now know why I'm doing this. So it's really important, if you've not started that, if you're just thinking about it, to think, what is my end goal? What do I really want to get from this?
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much, Moji. That sounds really interesting. We've got some people in the chat here, like Christelle, who is saying she's got a theater company. For those who are just joining us, we're asking people to let us know where they are in the journey of this, of either forming a theater company or being an artist. Moji, what are some of the highlights of your career so far?
Well, I mean, some of the highlights of my career is being called to come and work as a staff director at the National Theatre, for example. I'm sitting here minding my own business, and I get a phone call to say there's this production at the National Theatre, and we believe that you have the skills and expertise to realize the vision for it. So I go there and I'm paid good money to do that, to do something that I love doing anyway. So that is a good light. It's amazing that, I guess one of the highlights of it is that it's not that you kind of worship these buildings, but it's the fact that once you put these names, once people know that you're associated with this type of names, other doors kind of open for you. And people just kind of give you respect in a way that there were people that I walked past on corridors before that wouldn't say hello, and then suddenly they hear that, oh God, you've been staff director at the National Theatre, and they want to talk to you, they want to find out what you've been up to. And I mean, I don't judge people for that. I guess we all have our aims and objectives in the world. So if that's what floats some people's boat, then that's fine. But the reality of it is, yes, names do matter to some people. So again, it's all about your goal. It's all about where you want to see yourself. And I set myself a goal that if I'm going to do this at all, it has to be with that word excellence always at the back of my mind. If you're not going to be able to do anything well, don't bother doing it. It's not about the critics. It's not about the reviewers. It's about you. And it starts with the work that you do. And it's not about what anybody else wants with that work. It's what you want. And that work has to be about you. It has to be showcasing you. It has to be telling your story. It has to be delving into avenues that are critical to your lives. It has to be things that are relevant to you and things that you're passionate about, because you can't live somebody else's life and you can't live somebody else's story. Your theater company has to be a reflection of you. And I think anyone that's seen my work, even people say that to me all the time, they would say, I see your work. I've seen your work 2-3 times. And even if I close my eyes and I just open my eyes and I see, I know that, yeah, that is Moji. That is Moji's work. And people need to be able to say that about your work. People need to be able to say that about your company.
Thank you. People, start asking your questions in here. What do you want to learn from Moji? I'm curious about when you started the company years ago, when you talked about your first production. What was the impetus there, and what sort of things did you, funding, you said you didn't have to apply for funding, you used your own funding, but at what stage did you get into applying for funding, maybe if you needed that?
So when I started out, like I said, the very first play was with colleagues that I was at university with. I had very little money, and they were willing to work on what we call a profit share. I don't know if you have that wherever you're joining from, but basically a profit share is where we all come together as artists and we all decide, okay, we're going to put this production together. Because I'm the person that is the person starting off the project, I have, say for example, £1,000. That £1,000 I would pay people that we can get on board to come and partner with us. Like a set designer may well decide, I don't want to be in any partner thing. I just want to do the work. Tell me what I need to do. I want to be paid. A sound designer might be, tell me what I want to do. I want to be paid, because they haven't bought into your vision. So that's why you need to first of all try and find as many people as possible that buys into your vision. Because if a set designer buys into your vision, he or she will come on board that profit share. And I can proudly say that the first production that we did, where we all came together, and even though we had to pay some people that were not part of that vision, we made enough money that each of us walked away with £75 each. It may not sound like a lot of money, but it's the fact that we all started our career. We all had a name on our CV that we can say we did this production. Because you could be an actor. I mean, so the 3 colleagues that I was at uni with, they were actors. But they could be an actor, but they've not had anything to put on their CV apart from the work they've done from university. So that production, by me setting up Utopia Theatre Company and opening it up with that production, allowed them to put that name on their CV and start their career. And most of them are still in the industry today. And some of them have gone off to do amazing things. And I'm going on my journey and they've gone on their journey.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Moji. Everybody, please, if you're able to, if you're willing to, would love to see your beautiful faces from behind these names. And if you would like to ask a question, I'm happy for you to put your physical hand up or to put your hand up in the comment section. Okay. This is going to be interactive, so we really want you to be part and parcel. Moji would love to hear from you. Sean G, you can come on. Where are you? If you can unmute yourself and then ask Moji the question you've put in the chat.
Okay.
Shanji, so Shanji says, who would you say were your most valuable staff in your early stages that help, in brackets, that help you progress?
I think it would have to be a young lady that I came across at the very early start of my career. She was from Italy, and she herself was trying to get into the industry. She hadn't done much apart from coming out of drama school as well. And she wanted to be a producer. And she took on board the whole task of just building and putting systems in place in terms of finding reviewers, looking after the budget, dealing with all the actors. And this was without pay. She bought into the vision. I remember we would go and meet up in parks, and we would sit there and we would meet up at coffee shops. We would talk for hours and hours on what we needed to do. She would do the recruitment. She dealt with all the paperwork that allowed me to be in the rehearsal room and be focused on everything that I was doing. I mean, she was just amazing. And she kind of just made all of it happen, including little things like ensuring that on the day of the launch, there were these little cupcakes that she arranged for somebody to bake and put Utopia Theatre's logo on it and gave it to all the guests when they arrived at the end of the show, gave it to all the guests. And it's little things like that, that if people buy into your vision, can just elevate everything that you're doing and take it from just a small thing to start growing you to that big place that you want to get to. It's also about finding your company's identity. You need to also think about, I talk now about the branding of the company. What is your brand? What is it that is going to make you stand out from everybody else? That there are loads of theater companies. I mean, there must be millions of them. But what is it about yours that stand you out from the rest? And this is why it's so important for you to connect yourself to it from the very start of it. What is it? What are the values? What are the core values that you want your organization to be known for? What is your artistic vision? What is your vision? For example, where I started from is not even where I am today. And that's another thing about your company. You need to allow your company to have a fluid existence at the very start of it. So I'll show you an image now of the very first production that I did. If we could bring up the image of the flyer, if we could share screen that, the image of the flyer for the very first production that I did, and I'll illustrate this aspect that I'm talking about. So this is the very first production I did called The Shepherd's Chameleon. This is the production that I launched the company with. And this was in 2012. And what is fascinating about this was this text was a text. It's called The Shepherd's Chameleon, and is a theater of the absurd. And it's a text that I was very passionate about when I was at university. I just loved the writing and the poetry and the language. And when I came out of uni, I decided that I was going to produce this play. I wasn't even thinking, by this time, you're just a drama student. I wasn't thinking about my identity. I wasn't thinking about who I am. I wasn't thinking about what stories I want to tell. I just found this play. I loved this play, and I had all sorts of ideas about it. It's 3 cast members, and I thought, actually, add 1 more, and I thought I would just do this play. I knew that I could do it with very minimal budget, because I don't require like 10 actors and that kind of thing. So that's another thing, the choice of where you start. But then, when you then see where I've then gone from then on, at the end of this production, the next thing that I did was a story that is called London Tales. And London Tales was working with actors within the community, working side by side with professional actors, just telling day-to-day stories of everybody, you and I in London, what we get up to and how we find life there. So it's like you can see that shift already, that I was already starting to shift away from this classical foreign text to something that is now something that my passion towards the type of stories that I want to tell is starting to come forward. If we can share screen the next production that I did after London Tales, I would then make another point in terms of this fluidity of your of your growth of your theater company. So this is Iyalode of Eti. And Iyalode of Eti flyer that you can see is now Utopia Theatre starting to go in the direction of where we are today. And this Iyalode of Eti was in 2000 and, I believe it was 2013 or 14. But the point I'm making is, so Iyalode of Eti is a British text. It's a British classic canon called The Duchess of Malfi by John Webster. And what I've done with that is I've taken that story and transposed it to my own, not just using my own language, I've also transposed it to my own culture. So I'm a Yoruba woman, and I knew that the influences from my Yoruba culture and tradition and African oral storytelling traditions and all of the things that I grew up around me was starting to infuse my creative life and my creative journey. And that's what brought me to the vision to create this piece. And with this, I had to commission a writer to adapt that text and take it from its English existence in the way that everybody knew it to be, and then transpose it and take it to an environment that sits within my culture and my tradition. So straight away, you can see the journey already from where I started from. So if anyone has any questions, that's just that big.
Shiv, if you could unmute yourself and ask your question directly to Moji, please. Yeah.
Hi, thanks so much for this. It's been really helpful, and also so much more straightforward than so many other of these talks. I just wanted to say that I'm just starting a production company, and I've used this time in quarantine to adapt to new text. But obviously we're hearing so much now that there's no money in theatre, and theatre is dead, and they can't open until next year, and all of these really negative things. And also we're seeing big companies like CanMac and the Globe even, say that we have no way forward or whatever. What is your opinion on this, and what do you see theatre doing, or how do you see it managing to come back from this crisis?
Okay, so the very first time I saw theatre, I was there's a bit of an echo there, but anyway. So the very first time when I saw theatre, I was in a school, in a boarding school, and in this school there was a touring theatre company.
Sorry, Moji, just one sec. Could you mute your microphones if you're not speaking, please? Just there's a lot of feedback coming through. Thank you. Go ahead, Moji.
Okay. So I was in this school, and this touring theatre company arrived. All their set and costume and all the actors were in this van, and they have this megaphone at the top of the van, and he'll be shouting and saying things like, so this is the story we're about to tell you today. This is what's going to happen at 6 p.m. We want all of you to gather in this quadrangle, and this is going to happen, and that is going to happen, and that's going to happen. And come 6 p.m., we were all gathered in quadrangle. Some of us were sat under the trees, people were littered everywhere, and we watched this company make their set, perform there, and it was a performance that also involved the audience. So there was audience participation, you were part of the story, you were part of the set. So for me, haven't experienced that, and I know it's not everybody that's experienced that way of seeing theatre, haven't experienced that. I feel like we need to try and start trying to look at the positives in the situation that we found ourselves today. Theatre is such a thing that it's what you want to make of it. And for me, as a company, I'm not seeing any doom and gloom, and I'm not feeding into anybody's doom and gloom. I know that I am going to continue to make work. If that work has to be made by a combination of it being made online being fed into film, being fed into live, being made outside in the cold, being made under a tree, being made inside a box. If I have to go and get the council and build something that is maybe a temporary structure, where I'm going to continue to make work. And we as artists, I think that is, because at the end of the day, all these buildings, we are the people that are feeding these buildings. But for us, they don't have work. So the sooner, I believe, that we start to take control of our art, I think if you have the skill and that is your passion, you would find a way to make sure that you make work. We would start, even this Zoom, I've directed a piece on Zoom already that I was paid to do. I'm just using this as an example. Somebody's just called me up and say, I have a production. There's Wandsworth Fringe Festival. I need you to direct it. So the actor is in their own space. I'm on Zoom and I've directed them on Zoom. There was audience at the end of the day when it was being performed. You would not believe it. At the end of that thing, people were clapping almost as though they were in the theater. People came in with their chips, with their drink, with everything, almost as though they're in the theater. So even the medium that we have will continue to develop. I'm not saying that online is the solution to all our issues within this industry, but I'm saying that we need to start trying to find solutions and start to try and think about ideas. There are different ways of it. The immersive theater, for example, is been ways that people have tried to find different ideas around storytelling. And at the end of the day, it's about telling story. You can tell stories anywhere. And social distancing should not stop us from being able to tell our story and from being able to say, I want to set up a theater company. I think if you really are passionate about this industry, you would find a way.
Thank you so much, Moji. Share for good. Yeah, thank you. So Moji, I think this is an interesting one. So Karira, you've got a question on funding. I think Moji has got a story around funding. Yeah. Karira, do you want to unmute your microphone?
Sorry, it's not Carrera, it's Ray.
Oh, right. Thanks. You go ahead.
Carrera's my wife. I've hijacked her laptop. Yeah, I just wondered how you got funding for your venue, how you got funding for various different projects you may have put on.
Okay. So there's so many ways that we've tried to get funding. The first one is to apply to, in the UK, you can apply for what we call the Arts Council funding. And to be honest, the first two productions that I produced, I didn't apply for any funding. Some of them were a combination of there are some small trusts, like the Unity Theatre Trust, for example, that will give you things between like £750 to £1,000. So we applied for a small pot like that. It's a very straightforward application. That's another thing. There are so many of these smaller trusts that can give you small pots of money that you can then find other people to contribute into. I've had things like raise funds through friends and family. So I've sent people messages and said, yeah, we need some funding towards this production. And lots of people have supported us that way. My first Arts Council application was then to make the production that I showed you the flyer for before. And that came about because I met someone that I was talking to about funding. And she just said, well, I apply for funding, I get funding all the time. Actually, Moji is not that difficult. And I know that all of us, when we hear about Arts Council funding, we think, okay, it's a lot of documents to have to complete. And as much as that is the case, but this person, I have to tell this story because this person was so good to me. Her name is Mojisola Elufowoju. And she said to me, she said, I remember this experience so much because she said to me, she said, Moji, I don't have another Mojisola like me. She said, I don't have the time to go through this with you. But what I can do for you is, I'll give you a copy of my application. You're smart enough to work it out. You take this, this is an application that's successful, doing exactly what you plan to do, be it not the same type of production that I've applied for. You take it, and then once you've looked through it and you've done your application, if you then want me to look through it, then I will look through it for you. And this is another reason why we as artists, we must support each other. There could be plenty of us in this sea. If I have an idea or I have a knowledge, I don't need to keep it to myself. I need to benefit other people from it. And the point I'm making is, if there's anybody on this platform that is in this country and wants to apply for Arts Council funding, if they want to see a copy of any of my successful applications to allow them to make a start to do this, I'm happy 100% to let them have that application and to give them whatever support they need afterwards to make sure that they can complete their application. And by the way, the funding platform is about to become open again because it's been closed. So there's going to be an announcement soon that is going to be open again. So yeah, so I've received funding that way. I don't know if that answers your question.
Sorry, and yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm definitely going to take you up on your offer. Thank you. No, I was just wondering also about your venue and how you secured a space in which you work.
Okay, so the venue where I work at the moment is not my space. It's a space where we are a resident company in somebody else's space. Yeah. And how that came about was, again, which is what I was saying about, it's your work that is going to speak for you. Even your work is going to open doors for you. So we took a show into this building, and the building saw that show and offered us a residency off of the back of seeing that show and how well that show did in their building. And that residency meant that we have a desk for me, a desk for my staff in a very reputable building. You get to use the light for free. You get to use the internet for free. They post your letters for you. They give you stationery. You have a cupboard to put your stuff. They support you. There's huge expertise within this building because it's a major theater in this country. And they support you with all of those facilities. They support you. You've got books in the building. You've got magazines in the building. So it's really important that you really put your best foot forward for every single thing that you put out there. You can't afford to put on any half-baked stuff to represent your company if it's your company. And if you need to sack people, you sack them. And you make sure that you get your work out in the best quality that you need to get it out at.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. Kole Odutola, you have a question.
Yes, I do. And my question is basically about the foundation of starting a theater company in a place like Britain. You'll pardon me if I'm not sounding too coherent because it's 6:38 a.m. here in Florida. So I've been up very early just to make this. So what are the institutional requirements from the state to set up a theater company in England? And the rider to that is, do you have to register with the Arts Council? What are the bureaucracies that are involved in setting up, once you have decided on a name and you've decided on the vision, what are the kind of things that you need to do? Thank you.
Great. So that is the beauty of the United Kingdom. This country is very friendly to artists. There are no requirements whatsoever. I traded as a company for 3 years before I had to put any systems in place to register the company. So I then registered the company as a any registration that I've done as a limited liability company, and any registration that I have done is because I got to a place where I wanted to start putting in some checks and balances that would enable my organization to grow. It was starting to become more than what I as a person can handle. And I needed to start surrounding myself with structures like a board, employees, and I felt that I needed an organizational name. That bureaucracy of limited something that protects me, protects the board, so that if we run into any financial difficulties, then we have that protection of being a limited liability company. But generally, there are loads of companies running in this country that don't have to be a limited liability company. They don't have to be any of those things. You don't have to have a board. You can apply to, obviously, forming yourself in a way that shows that you are regulated. Like, for example, forming yourself as a limited liability company allows the Arts Council or other organizations that you can be going to for funding to look upon you favorably, because they know that at least you're taking this seriously, rather than when I was operating as an individual. But the very first few fundings that I received them as an individual running Utopia Theatre. So I applied as an individual, Moji as an individual applying to the Arts Council. And then when I then formed a company, I now apply as an organization. So you can do your journey gradually. This is what I meant by going small, and then from small, you can then go big. I hope that answers your question, Colin.
Very much so. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Beverly Thomas, and then after that, can we have the person named KVM that has their hands up? So Beverly, please. Bev, if we don't have Bev, KVM, would you like to ask your question?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Okay. Hi, Moji.
Hi.
I've been following your work for quite some time. After I saw Patrick and Betty in the UK. I work in Lagos, Nigeria, and I have a theatre company registered. I have accessed grants from British Council, as theatre is not funded in any way by the government in Nigeria. However, my concern is this, structure. So I noticed that most of the companies around me here I run, yes, registered companies, all right? By law, you should register with another individual, okay? Not just you, as a member of the directors of the company, okay? I think the law has even been relaxed to having just you, okay? And then subsequently you can build a board. And like you, I started running theater 2014, but I got registered in 2017, December of 2017. So yes, it also works here too. However, my concern has been structure, and I've been looking to build structure as well, but I've been confused. What are the things you need to put in place? What positions do you need to fill? I mean, considering that you don't just want to take everyone along and then fill up on unnecessary positions, okay? I want to run a proper theater company.
Yeah. So if you want to...
I want to raise the game, basically.
Yeah, okay. So I think to run a proper theater company, there are key people that are very, very important. Okay. And the first person is somebody that looks after the administrative aspect of everything that you do. Because you as an artist, you're not going to have the time to deal with, if you put all your head in all of the administrative stuff that that would come up in respect of how we run a theater company, you're not going to have any time to do any work. So you need
matter of fact.
Yeah, you need somebody that is very good at looking at financial documents. It's very important. Somebody that can look at contracts, because, for example, I mean, I'm lucky. I trained as a lawyer. So when a contract, I trained as a lawyer before I became a theater director. So when a contract appears in front of me, I quickly switch off my artistic head, quickly put my lawyer and start looking at that document. But a lot of people don't have that extra skill. So you need somebody also that kind of has all of those skill sets. This is one of the things that's on the list of things I wanted to talk about as well, is that
great.
You need to think about, what skill sets do I have and what do I need to source? If you're not good at looking at accountancy documents, which I'm not good at, I'm not good at looking at financial analytical documents. So I need to make sure that I have an accountant. So I have an accountant that is with the company, that is set up to be with the company. So I can pick up the phone and I can call him, I can say, oh God, I need a cash flow forecast for this application and I need it by tomorrow. And he will just get on with it and do it. He already understands the structure of the company and is the same person that does all of our accounts. So he should have all of the paperwork with him to work things out very, very quickly. So if you can afford it, you need somebody that can manage the financial aspects of it. But most importantly, you need a producer. You need somebody who knows your industry in and out, somebody with contacts, somebody with network, somebody that if you have a show, they can plan ahead for you in terms of what you need to do with that show. Because there's no point. You spend so much money and so much time to put a show together. But if you haven't got a plan of how you're going to make your money back, that itself is not going to allow your company to grow. So a producer, I think, is they are one of the biggest assets to a theater company, especially if you can get somebody that buys into the vision of the company and would help you to build and plan, not just a 1-year plan, but a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 4-year plan, a 5-year plan of what you can see as a vision of where you want your company to be going. And that person can just toe-to-toe work with you to get you to that destination, because they have the expertise. And these people are very rare to come by. But when you come by a good producer, I mean, they can make you loads of money, and they can make huge impact on your company. I don't know if that's answered your question, but feel free to come back.
Okay, we can come back to maybe when you tell us what you had in mind about structure.
Yeah. So
that's fine.
Yeah. So in terms of the structure that I have at the moment, which has been very beneficial to me, I have an operations manager, and that operations manager looks after everything that I don't really want to be problem myself with. So she looks after everything from money to making sure people are paid on time, to reminding me about meetings that I need to have, to making sure that all the documents is all organized, all the photographs, everything that we have in the company. She knows where they are, and people can get hold of her if they can't get hold of me. So that is one part of the systems that we have. At the moment, we've advertised for a general manager, who is like the kind of person that I just described to you, who would be somebody that is in between producer, manager. And that person will look after every aspect of the company, including serving your board, because the board needs to be provided with information about what is going on in the company. That is the only way they can help you to continue to grow the company. So part of the structure that we have is that general manager coming on board. We would then probably have a young person who we've also advertised to come on board. And that person will basically deal with things like social media, general admin, just getting us out there on platforms and just making sure that all our platforms are fed. In terms of structure, we then have the board. The board are people that we've put together on the basis of their skills and expertise. So these are people that have, for example, one of them is run a big theater company in this country. So she brings all that experience to come and serve Utopia Theatre. One of them is a top financial accountant executive in a big company. So she brings all of that expertise. So if we miss anything out in terms of financial documents, she would pick it up because she's on it. Then we have people for marketing and communications. We have 2 board members who that is their area of expertise. We have a board member that their area of expertise is film and the digital side. So if we need any advice on that area, we have that person to call on board. Then we have somebody that is like a kind of master, is an academic, is been around for a very long time in the creative industry, and that is the chair. That person chairs all our meetings, and he kind of just brings everybody together to ensure that they continue to have conversations about how the company is going to grow. So for now, that is the structure that I have in place. And then we're also looking for a producer. I mean, we bring in producers on a freelance basis at the moment, but we're also looking to bring somebody in full time. So that is the basic structure that we have in place that we've been working with and that we would continue to work with in the next few years.
Thank you.
No,
Much clearer right now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot, Moji and KVM. We've got YK with a question, so I'll go to YK, and after YK, Denzel Muguti, you could get ready for your question. YK is not there. Denzel, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, hi. So my question is more to do with kind of like the audience and how you kind of shape your audience from your first production to kind of the productions that you do now. Because what's important to me, because I actually worked with Mojisola as well in university, and she said that you have to always bring your own identity into a lot of the work that you create. But then for me, I've always seen with a lot of the work that I create, the audience which come and see that work, there's always a disconnect, whether it be class, race, or all of that. How do you kind of like, you and your company create your own audience that you know your work is going to resonate with?
Yeah, it's such an important question, and I'm so grateful to you for asking it because it's not on my list. And it's important that, so like when I started out, I kind of had the same issue that you've just explained about not really fixing my radar on who my audience are. And then at some point, I think I suddenly got it. I got it because when I would go to theater companies to go and pitch my work and say, would you give me a slot? I want to bring my work to your venue. The first question they'll be asking me would be, but who's the audience? How are we going to get the audience? We don't think the audience is here. We don't think your target audience are here. And that's when I started thinking about my audience. I developed a strategy of how I would connect to them. So the traditional method of marketing, I had to disable it for myself and decide that I would find my own new way of marketing. And this is what we did for Iyalo Diobeti. We went into the community and we went to every single shop in areas where our audiences are. And we went and spoke to, there was a few of us, like 10 of us. We went and spoke to every single shop owner. So we go to the news agent, excuse me, sir, we've got this show that is going to be happening at the Playhouse. This is what it's about. We're going to leave some flyers here on your side. Please, when anybody comes in that look like they are an audience that are of this particular demographic, can you give them this flyer? But please don't just give them the flyer. Can you say to them that there's this play that is going to be happening and this is what it's about? And we said to this person, and we would give you 10 free tickets. 10 free tickets, and you can give those tickets to anybody. You can give them to your customers. And that was how we started to build our audiences. And these audiences, over the years, they would travel, even when we moved from Leeds to Sheffield, they would travel all the way from Leeds to come and see the show in Sheffield. Because if they buy into your vision, they bought into it. So we went to churches, we had ambassadors, young people who can go into churches and say, oh, I'm going to go and see this show. And then they talk to their peers and their colleagues about the show, and then they give them the flyer. Then instead of relying on people, our people sometimes, they don't want to go to places and go and be buying tickets. So we used our money, we bought some tickets, we gave it to these ambassadors. They would take it to the church and they would then sell it, and then they'll just return the money back to Utopia Theatre. Then we gave them free tickets to use as incentives for people who can't afford to see theatre. Because what I find is, without generalizing, our people don't think theatre in this country is for them. But then once they experience it for the first time, they get the bug and they can't stay away. Because at the end of the day, we all like to see ourselves reflected back at us. And we all love stories.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next up, Lorna, and then Annie Domingo if she's back at her seat.
Hey there, Moji. Thank you so much. It's great to hear you. I'm with a group of six women, and we're starting up our company. We've performed a few times. And I could really hear what you were saying about sort of having your vision, your vision and your brand. Have you got any advice for us as six about how to develop that and really get a sense of a strong identity as the six of us?
I think part of it would be, I think you all need to sit down and have conversations and just do a lot of brainstorming about why you've come together. Why have you come together? Why are you making this work?
Yeah.
So for me, it was about looking out there, going to the theater and not seeing people that look like me, that are telling the stories that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So if that is the case with you, it's about digging deeper into what are the gaps that you can see.
Yeah.
What is it that you bring to that?
Yeah.
And I think that is how you start, and your identity is not going to come overnight. I think you're going to grow into it. You're going to get closer to each other. You're going to determine who's got the skills for what. And everybody's going to start owning their own area of expertise. If you're the writer, then something is going to be happening to you as a writer. If you're the person that's got the directorial vision, I think it's about doing that as well. It's about just giving space for each of the six of you to start thinking about where do you want to focus your energy that is going to generate the best for this organization, for this company.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks, Lorna and Moji. Annie Domingo, would you like to ask your question?
Hi, Moji.
Hi, Annie.
Yeah, I'm stalking you. It was talking about the funding. I put the question earlier on that you have. I know that the Arts Council changed their demands, and I just wondered whether over the time you've applied for different productions, and how did these funding changes arrive, and how did you manage them? Because sometimes you get into one pattern and then they change it because
I think that is very right. And I would just say something that my Arts Council relationship manager said to me. No matter what the document that is in front of you, what you need to realize is the people who are considering these applications, they probably got thousands of applications to consider. What you need to do, what is most important is you must make sure that they can hear your voice. They have to hear what is unique about you. It's not about fancy language. It's not about writing it in this kind of like, oh God, using all these big fancy words. No, it's about, you will not believe it. One day I wrote an application. I think it was probably one of the maybe like the second one I wrote. And I sent it to my relationship manager. And she said to me, she said, Muji, she said, you came to me yesterday and we were talking about this application and you told me all these things. And I was so excited. I was happy. And then I got this application on paper and it's got all these big words. And I couldn't match what is on paper to the person that was talking to me yesterday. He said, you've sucked out all the passion from writing the application by trying to write it in this way that we think. And I agree with you, things are always changing and the goalpost is always being moved. But at the end of the day, there are specific questions that the Arts Council want answering, and those questions really never change. Those questions are usually, what do you want the money for? Who's going to benefit? Why should we fund you and not somebody else? Those are usually the main three questions. And who are you? And who are you? Which ties in with why should we fund you? Who are you? Why should we fund you? Who's going to benefit? And part of the most important part of that application I found in the years that I've been applying, I've only ever been refused once. And in that time, the reason for the rejection is not being clear as to who the beneficiaries are. We need to always remember this is public funds. This is not some private bank. So if we're going to be using that money, we need to show who's going to benefit. So this platform that you're on, for example, is through, we've got the funding through Arts Council. Look at the people here who are benefiting from that. It's easy to articulate that to somebody and for somebody to think, of course, I'll give you that money. But if we are not even clear as to who is at the end, who is at the receiving end of that money, because it's not Utopia Theatre. Utopia Theatre is just a conduit. I'm just there to make sure that some other organization that's got huge money is not getting that money. I'm wanting to get that money to make sure that my community gets that money. My community gets to benefit from that money. And I think we should all make sure that we're doing that. Because it's the only way that we're going to ensure that there's representation within this industry. It's not by talking about it. If you apply once, it's refused, you put it in again. That's what I did with the one that was refused. It was refused, I read it myself, and I could see exactly what I did wrong. I redrafted it straight away, and I resubmitted it straight back in, and I got the money. You can't afford to give up. Because it's not, I'm not saying that it's a piece of cake, but what I'm saying is that we're all able to write it. And if anybody needs support to write it, I'm happy to give my time for free to make sure once they get the first one, they would help the next person get the next one. The next person, is this chain reaction that we need. This is how we're going to make a difference in this industry. It's coming together in numbers and doing stuff and continue to do it and put the work out there. The more people see of this work and the level of excellence that we churn out work, the more they would recognize us and know that we are part of that landscape and we are part of that ecology, and they have to take us seriously. We don't need to go begging at anybody's door.
Thanks a lot, Moji. German Anikolapo and then Prince Zadok. German, are you still there?
Yeah. Well, I think the question I wanted to ask was asked earlier on by the producer from Nigeria. I was talking about, because much of the experience you've shared are based in the UK, where there's some kind of support for theater, for the arts generally. I've just seen my colleagues, Kenneth Poho, theater director, Makinde Adelino, theater director, in fact, chairman of NANTAP, Nigerian Association of Theater Arts Practitioners. The main problem we have here is that there's no support. And a lot of young people, I'm emphasizing young because I'm fairly old, very young people I see who want to produce theater. And there's not a single support, even a place to perform, there is none. So they have to improvise in all the time. And in fact, there's only one standard theater in Lagos, Terra Culture. And so where do all the young people go? And we're training young artists, they're coming out of the school. And so I was trying to see what kind of experience we can share from yours, because I know that the way you started was almost like that too. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if I could just add something to what I've said earlier. I think around about 2012, I met a young man in London, and he was telling me about this same thing that you've just mentioned about the experience in Nigeria. And they wanted to put together an organization that would address some of these issues, which would be getting all of the artists to be part of some kind of association whereby we can then tap into the resources in the UK and try to kind of work with each other, whether there are ways that companies like myself can come together with some other companies that have similar interests, and we can work together to try to address some of those issues. Because, I mean, I know in Nigeria, you don't have the equivalent of equity, for example, and they were thinking about setting up something like that that allows us to raise funds that would address some of these issues. And I think these are conversations that we should pick up, and that is part of what this platform is about. And I'm happy to start that conversation with anyone who wants to get in touch with me separately to try to see whether it could be something really little that we're able to do. It doesn't even need to be anything big. It could be just raising a pot of money that allows a group of artists to exist somewhere for a year or something like that. It would still be the start of something.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Did you have more to say? Sorry, German.
No, I was just saying thank you.
Yeah,
Extended my colleagues want to ask, because they are the one experiencing it. Kenneth is there, Makinde is there, because they are directly experiencing what I've just mentioned. Yes.
Thanks so much. That's really appreciated. Just to remind everybody, you can raise your electronic hand in the facility if you want to ask a question. And also the hashtag we're using if you want to interact on social media is hashtag #UTCreativeHub. So this is a good time for you to start engaging publicly if you want about this, because we're getting into the home run. We're in the last sort of 26 minutes or so of this. Can I have Prince Zadok, please? Prince Zadok, if you're still there.
He needs to unmute.
Oh, unmute your microphone, please. I'm sorry, Prince, we still can't hear you. I'll come back to you in a moment. Beverly, is your microphone now fixed? You were saying you had a problem. You could come in now?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
All right. I'm really sorry because I've missed a lot of your talk only because my internet keeps dropping out all the time. But the thing that I caught was around funding. Part of what I do is around grant funding, and people don't have to keep going to the Arts Council because there are other for instance, there's an organization called SYFAB, and it's mainly for people that live in the Yorkshire region. However, even if you are from outside it, you can still log on and they'll have a list of funders. For instance, let me just tell you, sorry. Sorry about this internet. Right, for instance, there's an organization called Esme Fairbairn Foundation, and what that organization tries to do is give money towards creative activities. There's the Paul Hamlin Foundation. Also, they do lots of things, but one of the things is around creative foundations. So if you want to find out about funding bodies, go on to the SYFAB site. That's all you have to type in, SYFAB. For people that are overseas, I would suggest you look on the British Council website, because they are trying to always do links between overseas areas and Britain. So yeah, somebody's put FYA. No, it's SYFAB.
Thank you, Beverly.
Yeah. And if anybody wants me to give them like 3 tips when they're doing their applications, I'm quite prepared to do that as well.
That's great. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, Beverly.
Thanks, Bev. Do you want to tell people how they can get back to you then, in that case, if you're offering, Bev?
Yes, I'll just put my email address below.
Brilliant. Thank you, Beverly.
Much. Any questions that before I ask a question myself? Anyone else in there? The question. Prince, have you unmuted? Yeah.
Yes, I have. And I actually didn't have a question to ask. I just want to appreciate what is happening here, and the fact that Moji has taken it upon herself to create such a platform and a forum that encourage the arts family to come together and give a push together. And it's a welcome development. I appreciate this so much. I hope it will be sustained. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prince. Moji, I have a question for you. This is 2000. So that was 2015. You got registered, you said.
Yes.
So this is 2020. It's been 5 years, and you're doing this amazing creative hub as Utopia Theatre. What do the next 5 years look like?
Ooh. So the next 5 years, we hope to develop the creative hub into a global academy. And we hope to be in our own building in the next 5 years. We hope to be just connecting. We just want to break that boundary and just be able to connect with people all over the world. And we just want to put the stories of Africans on the map. We want people to live and breathe the stories that we have to tell, because we have loads of stories. And it's a huge continent. It's a continent that deserves to be showcased, and we hope that we can reach as many parts of that continent as possible, and also break down the stereotype of what Africa is and what Africa is about.
Thank you. Massive, massive, massive. So I've got YK. YK, did you want to come back, or is your hand just raised?
Yes, please. I'm so sorry. I've just been trying to multitask. Thank you so much, Moji, for your input. It's been so enlightening. I wanted to ask, just track back a little, because my question was more related to something you said about setting up companies. So like if you set up a company here, a theater company here, or a production company here in the UK, can you do the same in Nigeria? Can you register the same country and the same company outside of the country as well?
Well, I believe so, but I'm happy to be corrected by anyone who knows any different. I've never done so, but I do know an organization who have done so. So the James and Ensure Foundation that I went and did some work for in Nigeria, they set up a company here and they set up the same company in Nigeria. Yes, so as far as I'm aware from that example, it is possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, YK and Moji. I've got Sean Graham. Sean Graham, are you the Sean in the chat as well? You've got your hand up. And so Sean Graham or the other Sean G. Thanks a lot.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Hello.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for everything. It's been grand. I just wanted to ask, Moji, have you ever had a bad idea, and how did you go about resolving that idea or learning or growing from that idea?
Have I ever had a bad idea?
Yeah.
I have actually. Yeah, I just remembered one. I had a bad idea. Oh God, I'm probably going to regret telling you this bad idea, but I'm going to tell you anyway because it's the only one I can remember. I had an idea once for a production where I wanted every creative on that production to be black, to be every single person on that creative to be black. And I kind of regretted it slightly because I had one person that was just, I had one person on that production that was slightly problematic. And I kind of felt that at the end of it all, I felt that that is not a good enough reason to put people together on a production. That what you would need to do is, as much as that may be at the back of your mind that you would like to achieve that, because you're trying to encourage representation within the industry, you still have to also go through and make sure that the best person is there for the job.
Yes. Yep. I understand. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot. Love that question. It's a very difficult one usually to think of. I'm waiting for more questions, but in the meantime, I would like to ask Moji, do you think there's a time in your childhood where you can point back and say, actually, theater is something that I would really love to do? Or is there a moment at all where you could have gone for theater but went for law instead, where you think that was the moment?
Yeah, so I was in love with theater from when I was in the secondary school in Nigeria. So I went to a school in the middle of nowhere. It's called Ado-Ekiti for Nigerians who are in the audience. It's called Christ School Ado-Ekiti. And in this school, we had a number of theater troupes that would just visit. Herbert Ogunde was one of them. I know some of you will probably start thinking, how old is she? Well, you can just go and guess that one. So his theater troupe was one of the troupes that would visit my school. And I remember growing up and wanting to go to university, and I told my father that I would be going to university to go and study theater arts. And he said, oh, no. In Yoruba, he said something like, that in our family, people don't do dancing and singing and all that kind of jazz. So that there's no way you're going to go and study law. So I said, oh, fine. So I decided to do what he wanted. In fact, I studied English and literature first. And then I went and then he sent me here to the UK to study law. And then I studied law. And then, so I went into theater. I actually went to drama school at the age of 40. again, people will be trying to do their calculations now. So it was at the age of 40 that I decided, okay, I've done what everybody else wanted me to do. Now I'm going to go and do what I want to do. And I've never been happier. I don't have as much money as when I was a lawyer, but I've never been happier in my entire life. I wake up in the morning now and I'm happy. I go to bed at night, I am happy. I am happy talking to you now, I am happy. I'm just happy talking about it, watching it, doing it, speaking about it. And I would encourage anybody, if this is your dream, and if it makes you happy, if you're passionate about it, then you should do it. If there's anything people say about me, they would say, when you talk about it, we just know that you're passionate about it. Doors have opened for me simply because of the passion that I have for this industry. Sometimes not even because people believe that the idea that I'm pitching is going to work.
Such a beautiful story. Thank you very much. Really love that. Lauren Alexandra Taylor, if you could unmute your microphone and contribute, please.
Hiya, I just wondered, what is your kind of #1 bit of advice that you wish you would have known before starting your own theatre company?
I think the #1 bit of advice would be always make sure that all the people that you're collaborating with, you need to carry them along and make sure that you're open and honest with them from the very start of the project. So if you know that there's not going to be enough money in the pot, you need to make sure that they're aware of that. It's really so important. If you know that payment from the Arts Council is going to be delayed, you need to really make sure that, just give them a little inkling, even if you're not sure it's going to be delayed. Just give them an inkling that there's a possibility that the funding might be delayed. Because if they know, then it won't come as a surprise. You just need to keep everybody sweet. Yeah, and yeah, we artists, yeah, especially, we need money. We just can't take that for granted.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I've got Kole coming back, and after Kole, could Denzel get ready as well? Thank you.
Well, this one is the kind of question I'm sure you answer all the time. You started off as a lawyer. Of course, everybody knows that whatever you did as a lawyer, you changed and impacted the lives of people. But what you seem to have been laying emphasis on this is that you're making people happy. So you're making individuals happy. What would you, if you look back now, how would you say that Utopian theater has contributed to the transformation of society and the vision of society that you have? And underlining that is, what is the vision of society, the kind of British society that you have in mind that you think the Utopian theater can contribute?
I mean, it's an amazing question that you've asked. So part of something that I haven't explained before now is that part of the work that Utopia Theatre does is not just oral African storytelling in the way that that some of us probably know it. Is also a fusion. So what we try to do is to fuse the Western and traditional practices and aesthetics within the African oral storytelling traditions. And there's a reason for that. Part of that is to open up the work that we do to a much more diverse audience. Is to bring people on board. Is to mix the familiar with the unfamiliar. And that way, you can then start to engage with audiences that are even outside of what you can imagine. And for me, it's about bringing people together to have a conversation. Because if I just make work in the way that I know it to be made back home, in Nigeria, for example, and I just come and replicate, for example, what I've seen of someone like Herbert Ogunde's work, which is absolutely amazing, or some of what I saw as a child in terms of African theatre, in terms of the Lere Paimon and all these other incredible artists in Nigeria. If I try and recreate that, then how do I engage in conversation between audiences in this country who are of a different background or of a different race? What I'm trying to do is to create productions that allow people of different races, of different backgrounds, of different ethnicity, of different educational backgrounds to come together and hear stories that would resonate with all of them on the same level. And that is the main aim of the company.
Thank you, Moji. Can we have Denzel and then Bolu Watif, please get ready after Denzel.
Just to kind of like ask more onto like the lawyer side. When you get a contract, especially one to do with your company and to do with any like artistic collaboration that you have, what is kind of the things that you look for that should be there, or kind of the first thing that you say, okay, these are the first things I'm looking for that need to be there in order for me to even think about doing this, or the things that are not in there that you think should be in there? Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm looking for in there, first of all, is anything to do with money. The most important thing is something they call contracts. And contracts are things that people put in the contract. They are costs that they're going to ask you for, but there are things that they are not sure whether these costs are going to happen. So they built it in there, and then all that's going to happen is at the end of your gig, you may just receive a bill for something that you haven't got a clue that was going to be, that you were going to be billed for. I'll give you an example. So for example, we went to a venue. This is at the early stages of my career before I started looking very properly into my contracts. We went to a venue to go and do a piece of work, and it's clear there that this is the amount of money that we're going to get paid after we've done the work. And this is the amount of our ticket monies that we're going to get back. I think it was like a 70-30 box office split or something like that. At the end of the day, I got a lesser amount than that, and I queried that. And they said, oh, yeah, the reason is because when we were doing the technical aspect of the production, some of our staff were sitting in the building to monitor everything, to monitor the use of, so during their lunch hour, they went and had their lunch, and you're paying for their lunch. So that is in the that is in that contract, but I didn't pick it up. So it's little things like that that you need to make sure that you don't end up picking up a bill. So if there's anything in that contract that looks untowards in any way, shape, or form, you're better off querying it, and they give you that peace of mind that, oh, this is what it is. And then you know that that's exactly what you want to pay for. So yeah, so it's just about looking at every single detail. And if you're not sure, then you're better off paying somebody £150 an hour who knows what they're looking at to look at it for you, rather than end up paying £500 or £1,000 out of the little money that you're making for your project.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Bolu Watif, if you could ask your question, and then we'll be getting towards closing.
Okay.
We can't hear you. You've muted your microphone again. Okay, in that case, Lorna, would you like to ask the question you've just posted?
Hi there. It was just in relation to the last question, actually. It was about So where is there to go to learn about things like you've just been talking about, and like how to communicate with theatres? You know, it feels like there's a lot of stuff that, you know, we're learning as we go, but we might come up like you with those things that you do, which, yeah.
You're quite right. And it's so important. And that's why we want everybody to support us to continue to build this platform. Because part of what this platform is going to do is to find those people who have that knowledge, who can even give it to you in a way that I can't give it to you in depth. Because there are people that this is their area of specialty. There are people that would, every single line, I mean, I've sent a contract to an expert before when this is a really detailed contract that there's a lot of money involved. And I sent it to this person and I'd already picked out a few things. But when he sent me back his notes, I was like, oh my God, I missed that. And it's about bringing those people who have that level of expertise on board onto some of these programs so that you can learn those things, because it's through that we as a community, that's the way that we're going to grow. We need to go into these places knowing exactly what we're looking at. And like me, a lot of it, I've done it by trial and error of I pick it up now, maybe I don't pick it up. And even I've learned now that even when I've looked at it, I send it off to a consultant. I pay them £150 an hour. They spend an hour, they look at it, and they give me some notes. At least I know that I've picked it up and I've dealt with it, because it could cost you a lot of money, some of these little mistakes that we make. So I agree with you. I think the Independent Theatre Council run a course. Who else? I'm sure there are organizations that run these courses, but I can find out and then we can do some kind of mail out and let you know. But the idea is this is going to continue. We have a thing as well in our community of stopping and starting.
Yeah.
There's been lots of people that's done initiatives like this. I think it's now about how do we support each other to continue to make sure that these initiatives continue, and that people like you and me and anybody else are able to have access to some of these workshops that, not me talking, but everybody comes with their area of expertise and they impact this knowledge.
Okay, so it looks like the minute I said that we'll be closing, there've been lots more people wanting to talk to you, Moji. Do you have time for a little bit more?
I have, yes.
You do. Okay, so for everybody else who would like to leave, thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to ask the tech team to post the link to our feedback form. Would really appreciate that. You would be helping us sustain this particular project if you could fill in the feedback form. For now, can I invite Christelle, please?
Hi, Mojis. Thank you so much.
Hi.
Hi. I know I keep saying every time I'm on this platform that I'm so grateful for this, but I am really, I am grateful. And just to say, I am one of Lorna's colleagues, so we are in the same theatre. But it was just a little ask, really. It wasn't a question. I was wondering if there was any possibility maybe on the Utopia Theatre website to have a link somewhere we can maybe contact people, a list of producer, people doing fundraising, that you recommend that we might be able to get in touch in the future. That would really be useful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We'll do that, definitely. We'll make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who else was there? Colette, did you want to close up, or is that hand still raised from the last time?
Oh, no. I think it's the last time.
Okay.
It must be the last time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Would you like anything before we close off completely? That's been wonderful. Thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thank you. Just to say that I'd just like to thank everybody for their contribution, even learning from Beverly. We're all learning from each other. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to also come together and inspire each other. And I think I just want everybody to walk away and just feel that COVID or no COVID, you are you, and you're on this earth for a purpose, and that you would meet that purpose, and that insofar you keep positive, there's nothing that you can't overcome. And that's me done. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.